Hey everyone, welcome back to the Highland Hardwater Outdoor Podcast. This is Matt and Zach.
Hey everyone.
Hey, we just got off the phone with Nicole Stone. Nicole is an angler. She's an influencer. She created her own marketing business, and then that kind of led into her creating Nicole Stone Outdoors, which is sort of a hub for information and education on the outdoors, ice fishing and fishing. It was a really great conversation.
Yeah, in the podcast, we talk about how Nicole got into fishing, how she started her own digital marketing company, her plans for the future, some future fishing trips coming up that are going to be really exciting. She also shares a few tips for getting into fishing if you're just getting started or if you want to start a YouTube channel for yourself. And she also shares her thoughts on the state of fishing as well as ice fishing.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. We're really excited for everyone to hear it. And we're really looking forward to a lot of other guests that we have coming up too. We have a lot of other planned, and we'll be releasing those as we have conversation with them. So make sure that you leave a rating review on iTunes or any of the podcast applications that you use. We'd really appreciate it. Share with your friends to kind of get that information out there. And stay tuned for future episodes of the Highland Hardwater Outdoor Podcast. Hey, everybody. We want to welcome to the podcast Nicole Stone. Nicole is an angler, outdoor influencer, and internet marketing specialist. She owns and operates Nicole Stone Outdoors, and we are excited to have you. How's it going, Nicole?
It's going well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. What are you up to right now?
Just catching up from a trip I was on. So that's not just right back to work.
Gotcha, yeah.
Nice. How was the trip?
It was fantastic. I got to do a lot of exploring and some history. I got to look at the history, which is like a second passion of mine. And now I'm back, and I'm pretty excited to hit the little bit of ice fishing we have left.
Oh, nice. So what's next for you immediately?
So right now I am kind of in limbo because our Rainy River, which is like my favorite place ever to go fishing in northern Minnesota, is starting to open up. And then that's going to piggyback right next to when I leave, like the 22nd for northern Manitoba for a final ice fishing trip. So lots coming up soon. And so I might be on my boat, and then the very next day I might be on ice.
Nice.
Is this about the right time of year, usually when you start losing ice? And then how long do you think Manitoba usually keeps theirs?
It varies. Like the last couple of years, I mean, we've had times where we've been on ice through a lot of April. Obviously, you have to be very careful, but that's very realistic here. And then I'm not sure about Manitoba. I know into April is usually, I mean, at least for them, that would probably, there'd probably still be ice through April for them. But for us, I mean, it's not out of the question to be on ice through April. But this time, I think like this year we're a little bit earlier. Like last year, Rainy River, we weren't on there till middle of April, and now it's still March, and I might get the boat out. So
nice.
Gotcha. For our listeners, do you know what lake or what area of Manitoba you'll be?
So Baker's Narrows, so it's the northern region of Manitoba.
Cool.
What species will you be targeting?
Well, for sure, we'll be targeting Lakers. So we're going to be fishing in like 100 feet of water.
Nice.
Using the underwater camera. That's going to be a new experience for me.
Oh, that'll be a blast.
And then we'll also hopefully be doing some burbot fishing. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And the burbot will be fun too. Like people take that species for granted, I think. But when you hook into a big burbot, they take you for a wild ride.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that'll be a fun trip.
Awesome. So we kind of wanted to have you on and kind of go over sort of how you got started and kind of talk to you about your business and how things are going. So just to kind of start out, how did you get started into fishing and outdoor sports, including ice fishing?
So I grew up on a farm in central Minnesota. Like my dad had a very small dairy farm, and we owned a little bit of property next to a river. So like it was kind of part of my life from as long as I can remember. We would shower in the river, we'd fish in the river, we'd get our food from the river, like that was very much part of our life. So as I got older, I started having more interest in hunting and fishing just on my own. I did a lot of spearing and stuff actually in high school with my mom. And then ice fishing came around right out of high school because we kind of, especially for conservation purposes, we kind of transitioned from spearing to just angling. And I fell in love with it after that.
Awesome. Cool. So then any stories that you'd like to share growing up? Like you said, once you started ice fishing too, I'm sure you have quite a few stories about even your first time ice fishing.
Yeah, I can't even remember it. I think I don't know that I have one particular story. I think just in general, it's been such a staple in my life. I've enjoyed so many different experiences, from traveling to, Manitoba to just fishing in my backyard. It's always been there. And that's what I love. I don't think I have any particular stories that I can think of.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's too many good ones.
Growing up, what did you target at first? Was it panfish, or did you go out for walleye? What do you remember going for some of your first fishing trips? Do you remember?
Yeah, so definitely, yes, I do. So my very first fishing trips were pike. Well, first was sucker. That was the first time my parents ever took me out, was actually sucker fishing. And we would just let a hook and worm sit at the bottom of the riverbank and just wait for a rod to bend over. That was my first fishing adventure. And as a kid, pulling in a big old sucker, that's exciting. Yep. And then from there, we pretty much went straight to walleye fishing off the riverbank. We'd take twisty tails, and we wouldn't even use bait, and we just throw twisty tails, and off the bends of the river, the walleye would be congregated with the suckers, and we'd just pull them up in the evenings. So that was definitely a staple. And then pike fishing, as a kid, throwing, a silver minnow and pulling out little 20-inch pike all the time. It was a lot of fun. So those were definitely the three things I grew up fishing for: suckers, walleye, and pike.
Nice. Yeah, those fights are a lot of fun too, especially the pike.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun, especially when you're young. I mean, even right now, if I pull up a 20-inch pike, I'm like, dang. But when I grew up, that was the highlight,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you grow up on ponds and lakes, or did you grow up on bigger lakes?
So I definitely grew up on river fishing. And then when I got a little bit older, a teenager roughly, my parents bought a boat and we started fishing our local lakes in central Minnesota. And that was challenging because my parents always wanted to go for walleye, and we'd always try fishing in the middle of the day because my dad had to farm in the evenings and mornings. And it was a challenge. And then one of the things that we learned growing up is, so we weren't very good at bottom bouncing. We didn't have a lot of success jigging, but we essentially, once we got the boat, we could run wraps on the lakes. So then we would really be running crankbaits. And then we'd catch them in the evening all the time. We'd come in after chores and we'd do moonlight shad wrapping. And that was really what got me and my brother hooked on lake fishing out of a boat, was just running shad wraps all night on a full moon.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. So now that you've done all these types of fishing, what's your favorite? Is it still the river?
Yeah, no, probably not. I think I love the river fishing. It's growing up, our little river was great. And then obviously Rainy River, I just talked about how much I love that because they are big fish. But nothing for me beats the excitement of fishing some of these northern Manitoba bodies of water, or even southern Manitoba, Lake Winnipeg, because just the volume of massive fish is mind-blowing. Yeah. And it's something, locally at home in my small area in central Minnesota, we just don't have that type of volume of large fish. So
yeah, that is a lot of fun.
Awesome. So once you kind of got into, when you were a teenager, what did you always have sort of an interest in photography or videography? How did that begin?
So I never really had an interest in either one of those. I was very science minded. So I went to school for atmospheric science. And so I was way more into the research and that type of application than I ever was on the creative side of video and photography. But then when I decided I wanted to pursue something in the outdoors instead of doing my traditional job, I realized there's a huge demand for that. That's what you need, right? You need to be able to provide content and information to people. And obviously people consume media with video and photos nowadays, especially with social media. And so then I've just slowly been trying to teach myself and improve that over time, along with a lot of digital marketing and website strategies, so that I could, so I'm slowly learning it and getting better at it so I can add that to my skill set and, just keep working on my business.
Yeah. So how did that transition happen into your business?
Well, it's very complicated. It was a very complicated process, but at the core, I just realized I really wanted to do something other than what I was doing. I was still really young, working, had a great job, but then it wasn't maybe as fulfilling as I thought I would have felt at that point in my life. And so one day I decided I was going to start teaching myself how to freelance write and really serve. I mean, with the internet, there's so many opportunities, and I saw that. And I saw one way to do it was start with writing. So I started doing that, writing for companies. And eventually I was able to add enough skill sets in with website development and stuff like that, that I could become self-sufficient and leave my job. And then the outdoor stuff kind of came along with that. And now that's really what I've been expanding on. So.
Yeah, cool. So what does the future hold for Nicole Stone Outdoors? Where are you trying to go?
I think like growing my brand, but really what I'm trying to do is I want to have a huge content hub of information. That's kind of where I want to transition to now that I have skill sets in digital media and blogging and all that. I want to put it together and have it definitely be more like how to educate people and get people excited about where to fish and how to fish and influence people that maybe didn't grow up like me with someone that teaches them. But instead, hey, they can go to this website or channels and learn about how to fish or where to go or how to get started. And I really want to see that grow on my website, Nicole Stone Outdoors. And so I think as I keep progressing, I'm taking all these skill sets that I'm working with my clients, and I'm going to pump them into my website and have this content hub of information to just kind of help educate and get people excited about fishing.
Excellent. And actually, I was going to have a quick question too. Nicole Stone Outdoors, and you're going to have clients. Do you also have clients that are outside of the outdoor industry?
Yes. So I originally started with that before I had anybody ever paying me for outdoor stuff. It was just that. Then I've slowly been able to take those skill sets. Like, it's been a process.
Yeah.
But take those skill sets and work with brands and stuff like that. So that's been outstanding.
Really cool. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on?
Oh, I don't think so. I think there's just been too many good ones. I'll say this. The Travel Manitoba projects I'm working on is maybe at the top, just because I get to travel to all these amazing places and collect, I get to collect content and educate people of these places I never dreamed I'd just go to for, I would have never thought I'd be taking these adventures, and now I'm getting to, I'm essentially, it's part of my job. So yeah, that's probably been my favorite, whether it's Wekusko Falls or Baker's Narrows or Lake Winnipeg. That's now part of what I'm doing for a career. And that's probably my favorite, not to favor anybody I'm working with, but that one's hard to
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
And I know that you kind of mentioned that transition from going from kind of a day job to Nicole Stone Outdoors and then kind of using those skills. But were there any difficulties you had to overcome when you started that, or even when you started your digital marketing business? Any difficulties?
Oh, for sure. So there's been a lot of difficulties. The first was just teaching myself the stuff because I came from science. And now I had to teach myself the creative side and media consumption and these things I had no skill set in. And so that just takes time and self-educating and, going, taking online courses to teach yourself and then practicing what you're teaching to try to come up with results to sell to someone, right? And so that was a challenge at first, and but it's paid off, really, time and consistency. And then the other challenge is just, especially in the beginning, when you're reaching out to write for people, a lot of times you just simply get turned down. For whatever reason, they won't even tell you why, and you have to face a lot of rejection. So if you're not used to that, as I wasn't in the beginning, that was really hard to overcome. But you eventually, the more clients you get, the more skill sets you get, the more opportunities you get. So it just comes with part of it. You just got to learn how to communicate with people, and it eventually works itself out.
Yeah, continue to build that resume, and then you get more clients from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what worked well when growing a business? I know you kind of have given some examples that you were able to kind of carry over from going from, a day job kind of thing to Nicole Stone Outdoors. But is there anything that any skills that you've particularly used that did grow Nicole Stone Outdoors?
So yes, I would say all the digital media side stuff was very, very good. So self-education first, so you can learn that stuff. And then the more I taught myself how to, I had no idea how to build a website. the more I just taught myself how to do that and took on whatever work I could to get better at it, that skill set has gone very far. And then just learning the marketing behind it. So it's really, I started off with NicoleStone.com, which has nothing to do with the outdoors, but it was kind of like the place it's just a place I could test things on and I could write about what I'm learning. And that stuff ended up being really beneficial later on when I had to market Nicole Stone Outdoors to outdoor people, to outdoor companies. And I think my biggest advice in the beginning when you're like transitioning into this is, educate yourself as much as possible with resources you can, and then try to test as much of it yourself. If you want to offer something to a client someday, make sure that you're testing it on your own platforms, because then you can make a million mistakes and learn from it.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really good advice for someone who's just starting out too, wants to do something similar.
Yeah, it's really just, you just got to go for it and learn and then test it and you're going to make mistakes. I think that's just comes with it in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there any other content creators out there that you are taking influence from, or any unsung heroes that you've really been enjoying their content?
Yeah. So, there's a ton. I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of awesome friends like Anna on Ice and Kristen Protega and Natty up north, who are doing a lot to just inspire women in the sport that I obviously would love to shout out to. But also, I think something that might be more unique, especially to the female realm of influencers, that's like helping grow the sport and put the sport in a different light, are two girls that just actually had babies, and Allie up north and Girls 10,000 Lakes. And they're doing a great job of kind of showing that you can kind of have your outdoor business and do all your passions and be a mom at the same time. And I think that's really, for someone like me, that's really inspiring, that you can really do it all if you put your mind to it. So those two girls I'd like to give a shout out to.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. So are they on YouTube? Where there's their YouTube handles?
They are on Instagram. So
okay.
Girl 10,000 Lakes and Allie up north.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I can imagine that'd be very inspiring.
Very much.
Cool. So that's kind of changing gears. I know that, like you were saying earlier, ice fishing season is coming to a close, and you're going to kind of go up to Manitoba for one last trip, and the ice has kind of gone away in Minnesota. So was it a successful season? Did you have a lot of great content that you created on the ice, and any highlights from this past season?
Oh, it's so many great highlights. It was a fantastic season. I'd say the biggest highlight was I got to start it off in November before many people did, up at Wekusko Falls, and then just to be at that incredible of a body of water with that magnitude of fishing with my really good friend Anna was probably the highlight. Everyone's so excited and they all wish they could be on ice, and I was like stepping on ice and pulling up fish after fish, and that was definitely a highlight. And then we got to fish with Brian Bogdan, who's really, really good at what he does up there guiding. And so we got to learn a lot from him, which I think just really helped their entire season. Absolutely.
When you're catching fish, it probably adds to the experience a lot.
Yeah. Catching fish constantly and big fish, that's what fishing is. It's so much fun. So that place is amazing.
Any particular catches that stand out to you?
Well, Lake Winnipeg, I caught a 30-incher, so that one.
Oh, nice.
And that happened in January. Yeah, and so that's definitely my highlight of the season was 30. I hadn't broken 30 through the ice, so that felt pretty good.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was going to ask if you had any new personal bests this year.
Yeah, not so much in weight, I would say, but for sure in length. That 30-inch Lake Winnipeg was huge.
Really cool. So any big trips planned for softwater fishing? I know you kind of have the, like we mentioned before, that Manitoba trip, but after that, any softwater, even videos that you have planned?
Yeah, so Rainy River open water for walleye here, hopefully in the next week or two, right before that Manitoba trip or right after. That's going to be a huge highlight for me. Every year it is. And then the other thing would be then Rainy River in April for sturgeon fishing. It's something I've done the last couple of years and absolutely loved. And I always drop videos on it because it's so unique. And so that's definitely probably the top two I can think of right now that I'm very pumped for, that I'm excited to make content about.
Cool.
Yeah. So do you have any tips on people who want to get into the industry as well, or just into fishing, into ice fishing or river fishing?
Yeah. So pretty much one is just start. It can be intimidating if you didn't grow up. Like, I was very lucky because my family was already doing it, so I had a teacher at a young age. But a lot of people don't have that like right at their fingertips, but there are ways you can work around it. So one and two would be to start, and you can start by simply using the internet as a source of information. You can obviously go to your local clubs, like there's WHAM, FM Walleyes in this area that can take you out and teach you. But if you just want to do it yourself, like, we're super lucky because we have the internet. So there's all this information on YouTube and websites that can kind of help you get the right gear to start, kind of tell you where to start, where to go, whether you're just starting off with panfish or pike or whatever. And then you just have to start. And as you start, you can just keep learning. And that goes for the industry too. Like, there's so much information out there, and you just have to take that first step of learning it and then starting, and it'll grow.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like there's just so much gear out there and so much knowledge. It's kind of hard to sift through it to get started sometimes.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's just a matter of trying to find some reliable sources and experimenting. You know, I think a lot of people, especially with the industry side of things or fishing, like, people want to start and take a step, but they're scared to, or they're scared of failure or of it not being perfect. But at the end of the day, you can't edit a blank slate. So you just have to start somewhere, and you can just keep improving and finding new sources of information. And the joy is there isn't really a right or a wrong in that type of realm. So.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And then, so what about as far as tips in creating their own channels? So I know that you created Nicole Stone Outdoors, created the YouTube channel. And can you kind of talk about how even that got started? And then also how someone would create their own channel now to create content in the outdoors for themselves? So
for YouTube, I just tried it one day. I tried like iMovie. Like, I took a little camera. I had no idea what I'm doing. So for people out there that are like worried they have no idea what they're doing when they start, like, that's me. Just keep going. And I just recorded stuff on a little dinky camera and got like iMovie and was just like, I'm just going to try this. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to put it on YouTube. Worst case scenario, nobody watches it, and then nobody knows I tried it in the first place, right? So I think, like, for people that are, again, like, just start, just try. You can take a GoPro, you can take your cell phone, try to edit, try to put out a video, share your favorite tips or your favorite fishing experience, and then just take the feedback you get and make another video and make another video. And literally the best thing you can do is just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the biggest difficulty you had?
With YouTube videos?
Yeah, was it the editing, or was it the filming, or kind of just everything all at once whenever you were first getting started?
Everything all at once. Like, I quickly learned, I don't particularly love filming myself. Like, I think a lot of people have that self-consciousness, and it's just like, oh, I want to film yourself, and then you don't really want to look at yourself afterward editing. But obviously that's part of it. And YouTube is obviously one, if not the biggest media consumption we have nowadays. So it's important to just kind of get through that process. So, I mean, that was probably the biggest difficulty for me, was trying to get decent footage and then tolerating watching myself while I try to edit that footage. And then, not getting too caught up in, oh, I look this way on this clip, or, oh, my hair's a disaster, or, oh, I explained that entirely wrong. Like, that's probably the biggest hurdle when you start, is just getting used to watching yourself on film.
Yeah. And you'll absolutely be your biggest critic too. I guarantee it.
100%. Definitely.
What's your thoughts on the state of fishing right now and ice fishing? I mean, a lot of people we've talked to on this podcast have talked about kind of how it's growing, and a lot of these guide services are full, and a lot of these ice fishing universities and seminars are always growing larger and larger, and they need to have bigger spaces for it. So kind of what are your thoughts and perspective on the state of fishing and ice fishing?
I think it's looking great. I think with digital media especially, it can reach a whole nother realm of people. which obviously helps grow seminars and helps grow shows. Like that all works together, but it also reaches people that aren't introduced to it just in their own little circle. So I think the outlook looks great. I think you're getting more and more women, especially interested in it. And a lot of times that comes with kids. And so I think it's becoming more of a family thing, or even just a girls' day on the water thing. And so to me, it just seems like the state of fishing and ice fishing is growing, especially ice fishing and especially the female realm. So to me, that's just a great sign of what's to come for the entire industry and sport altogether.
Awesome. And then any thoughts on from your perspective on how to grow the sport even more? I mean, I know you kind of mentioned the digital footprint and also, YouTube videos, the internet, and kind of getting youth involved. But any thoughts on how you would want to grow the sport too?
Yeah. So I think like exactly what you said, like all that media is one of the best ways to grow the sport, and then just having meetups. So I think what's really cool is the ladies, I wasn't able to make it, but the ladies had like a Midwest girls meetup this year. And I guess it was crazy, all the women that got together and the excitement around it. So I think like just growing the sport is getting together, reaching out to people. And then, a shout out to a lot of the girls that are online, just, and guys out there informing and educating and, making it look cool. I think that's huge in growing the sport.
Yeah, and it for sure makes it a lot less intimidating for someone who's just starting out, especially if you don't necessarily have parents or family members who have been fishing their whole lives, because it can be intimidating when you go out there for the first time. You don't really want to look silly in front of someone else who's fishing beside you or something like that.
Absolutely. And I think like that's the joy of it all. And I think there's a whole realm of people that didn't grow up with it. And so they're like sharing their online journey, their fishing journey online of how they're learning how to fish or ice fish. And to me, those people have a lot to give to the sport for that exact reason, because they're literally showing people, hey, you can be like me. I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm learning and I'm loving it. And I think those people, are really having a big impact on the future of the sport.
Cool. Yeah. Anything to plug and mention? So go ahead and mention some sponsors or supporters. Even give us, your Instagram handle and your YouTube name and everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess for sponsors, like obviously I'm really lucky to work with some awesome brands like Rapala, who has VMC and Strike Master and such. I've been working with Markham, and then Travel Manitoba. Those are three that I really have been appreciative of for the opportunities they've given me. And then also you guys can find way more about me at NicoleStoneOutdoors.com, which is my outdoor website, NicoleStone.com, which is my media website. So if you're looking to start media, that's a good place to go. Also I have a website dedicated entirely to lady anglers called Ladies of Angling. And then you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, I don't know, Fishbrain, you name it, I'm everywhere. I try to conquer all platforms, or maybe not kill it on all platforms, but be on all platforms. Yeah. So you can find me there.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.